When my daughter told me I needed to rest in a nursing home while holding the deed to my own house in her hands, I felt the blood drain from my face. 3 days later, I was sleeping in a dingy motel room while my lawyer explained I might lose everything I'd built over 6 decades. That's when I realized life is like a casino. The house always wins, especially when the house is your own flesh and blood. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a hurricane-force tornado, and you'll want to be around when karma finally delivers its magnificent blow. My name is Paulo Mendez. At 65, I thought I'd secured a comfortable retirement after a lifetime of building my business from nothing. My wife had passed away 7 years ago, leaving me with our daughter Eliana, the only family I had left and the person I'd sacrificed everything for. That Sunday morning started like any other. The sun streamed through the kitchen windows of the home I'd owned for 30 years as I prepared coffee. Eliana had called the night before, saying she needed to discuss something important. I assumed it was about her marriage to Ricardo, maybe even grandchildren news. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find not just Eliana but Ricardo too, looking unnervingly formal for a weekend visit. My daughter's face wore that determined expression I recognized from her childhood, the one she used when she'd already made up her mind and wouldn't budge. "Dad, we need to talk about your future," she said, settling into my leather armchair without waiting for an invitation. I laughed nervously. My future? I've got more past than future at this point. Ricardo didn't smile. He never had much of a sense of humor, that one. Always too busy checking stock prices on his phone to appreciate a good joke. "We've been concerned," Eliana continued, her voice taking on that patronizing tone people use with children or the elderly. "You've been forgetting things. The stove was left on twice last month." "Once," I corrected. "And that was because you called me in the middle of making lunch." "See. You don't even remember," she said, exchanging a meaningful glance with Ricardo. "Dad, we found a really nice assisted living facility. Private room, activities, medical staff on site." I stared at my daughter, wondering if she was joking. I was still running 3 miles every morning. My doctor had just given me a clean bill of health last month. "I don't need assisted living," I said firmly. "This discussion is absurd. Script part separator, Ricardo cleared his throat, pulling out a folder from his leather briefcase. "Paulo, we've already spoken to your doctor. We have concerns about early dementia." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "What? That's impossible. Dr. Martinez said I was in excellent health just 3 weeks ago." "People with cognitive decline often don't recognize their symptoms," Eliana said softly, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "We've consulted with specialists." "Without me?" I slammed my cup down, coffee splashing onto the table I'd handcrafted 30 years ago. "What specialists? When?" Ricardo slid some papers across the table. "We've already made the arrangements. Sunnyvale Gardens has an opening next week. The deposit is paid." I flipped through the glossy brochure showing smiling seniors playing bingo. My hands began to shake, not from any medical condition, but from pure rage. "This is my house," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I built this business. I'm not going anywhere." Eliana sighed dramatically. "Dad, this isn't just about your health. The house is too big for you alone. We could sell it." "Sell it?" I nearly choked. "This is your mother's home. Our home." "Be reasonable," Ricardo interjected. "Property values in this neighborhood have tripled. You're sitting on a fortune that could provide better care than we could ever." "Get out." I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. "Dad, please." "No. Whatever this is, I won't hear it. Not today. Not ever." Eliana's eyes hardened then, a look I'd never seen before. "Actually, Dad, you don't have much choice." She slid another document across the table. I recognized my signature, but not the document. "What is this?" I whispered. "Power of attorney," Ricardo said, his voice businesslike. "You signed it last year during that hospital stay for your hip. Don't you remember?" "The truth crashed over me like a tidal wave." They weren't asking. They were telling. Script part separator, I didn't remember signing any power of attorney. The hip surgery was minor. I was in and out in 2 days. But as I stared at the signature, doubt crept in. Had my memory really slipped? Was I losing more than just car keys and reading glasses? You can't do this, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Eliana's eyes softened with what looked like pity. We're doing what's best for you, Dad. This house is a liability. You can't manage it anymore. I built this house for your mother, I said, my voice breaking. Every corner has a memory. Memories won't keep you safe when you fall down those stairs, Ricardo countered, checking his watch impatiently. We're being practical. Practical. Il alguém bitter-lhe. Is that what you call stealing my home? My daughter flinched as if I'd slapped her. We're not stealing anything. The sale will fund your care for years. You'll be comfortable. While you pocket the difference, I said, finally seeing the truth. This neighborhood is worth millions now. Ricardo's jaw tightened. You have 1 week to pack essentials. The movers will handle the rest. They left me standing in my kitchen, surrounded by 40 years of life suddenly reduced to essentials and the rest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the house touching photographs, furniture, the door frame where we'd marked Eliana's height every birthday. When had my daughter changed from the little girl who sat on my shoulders to this stranger calculating my worth in dollars and cents? By morning, I knew I couldn't trust my own family. I called the only friend I had left, Martin Goldman, my attorney since the 1980s. They can't just ship you off, Martin said over coffee in his office the next day. His eyebrows, bushy and white, furrowed in concern. But this power of attorney, it complicates things. I don't remember signing it, I insisted. Martin studied the document, his frown deepening. The notary's stamp looks legitimate. Were you on medication after surgery? A chill ran through me. Painkillers. I signed discharge papers. Which could have included this, Martin sighed. Clever. Not ethical, but clever. Script part separator equals. So what do I do? I asked, feeling the walls closing in. Martin leaned forward, lowering his voice. First, we need an emergency psychiatric evaluation to counter their claims. Second, we challenge the power of attorney. And third, he paused, we follow the money. The money. Yes, Paulo. People don't suddenly decide to put their father in a home and sell his house unless something's changed. What's their financial situation? I realized I had no idea. Eliana and Ricardo always seemed comfortable. He worked in finance, she ran a boutique downtown. They lived in a nice condo, took vacations twice a year. I need you to do something difficult, Martin said. Go home and act normal. Don't confront them. Meanwhile, I'll start digging. Acting normal was impossible. Every hour in my house felt like a countdown. I started hiding small valuables and photographs in a gym bag. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Then the bombshell dropped. 3 days after their ultimatum, I received a call from Rosa, my former secretary who'd retired last year. Mr. Mendez, she whispered, her voice tense. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I overheard something at the country club. Ricardo's firm is under investigation for fraud. My stomach dropped. What kind of fraud? Investment schemes. They're saying he used client funds for personal expenses. Millions missing. The rumors say federal charges are coming. Suddenly everything made sense. They weren't after my house. They were after a lifeboat. I called Martin immediately. The power of attorney wasn't just about my health. It was about access to my assets before Ricardo's world collapsed. We need to move fast, Martin said grimly. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. My office. Bring every financial document you have. That night, as I packed my papers, the doorbell rang. Eliana stood there, tears streaming down her face. Dad, she sobbed. I need to talk to you. It's all falling apart. Script part separator equals. For the first time, I saw a crack in her carefully constructed facade. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. My instinct was to comfort her. This was my little girl, after all. But Martin's warning echoed in my mind. Come in, I said cautiously. She collapsed on the sofa, mascara running down her cheeks. Ricardo's company is in trouble. Big trouble. What kind of trouble? I asked, already knowing the answer. Financial irregularities, they're calling it, she whispered. The SEC is investigating. Our accounts are frozen. I sat across from her, maintaining distance both physical and emotional. And that's why you suddenly decided I needed assisted living? Her eyes flashed defensively. That's not fair. We've been worried about you for months. Worried about my money, you mean? Dad, please, she begged. We need help. Just a loan to get through this rough patch. Once Ricardo's name is cleared. You mean once my house is sold and the money is safely hidden from the authorities? She flinched. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Eliana? Explain to me how my daughter went from planning my institutionalization to asking for a loan in less than a week. Her silence told me everything. How much? I finally asked. 2 million, she whispered. Just to pay the lawyers and keep us afloat until this misunderstanding is resolved. I laughed bitterly. A misunderstanding worth 2 million in legal fees? What did Ricardo do? Nothing. She insisted. It's a witch hunt. His business partners are framing him. I studied my daughter's face, the face I'd watched grow from infancy. I could always tell when she was lying. She'd blink rapidly, just like now. The truth, Eliana. All of it. Now. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. Ricardo used some client funds for investments. Temporary borrowing, he called it. But the market turned, and he couldn't replace the money fast enough. That's called embezzlement, I said quietly. He was going to pay it back. He just needed more time. Her desperation was palpable. Dad, they're talking about prison. And there it was, the real reason for the sudden urgency to sell my house. Not my welfare, but a desperate attempt to avoid consequences. Script part separator, I stood up, my decision made. I'm sorry about Ricardo's situation, but I can't help you. She stared at me in disbelief. Can't or won't? Both. What you've done, trying to declare me incompetent, planning to sell my home under false pretenses, that's elder abuse, Eliana. Her face hardened. So you'd rather see your daughter's husband go to prison? Your own family ruined? My family. I laughed bitterly. My family tried to throw me away like garbage. And now you want my help. She stood up, desperation replaced by cold fury. You have no idea what we're facing. And you have no idea what you've done, I replied. You've broken something that can't be fixed with money. The next morning, I met with Martin as planned. I brought every financial document I possessed, bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds. Martin whistled as he reviewed the papers. Paulo, do you realize your net worth? I shrugged. I've been comfortable since selling the business. Comfortable? Martin laughed. You're sitting on over 5 million in liquid assets alone, not counting the house. I've always lived modestly. My wife and I agreed to save for Eliana's future. Martin's expression darkened. And now that future involves federal fraud charges. There's something else you should know. He slid a document across the desk. My hand trembled as I read it. This can't be right, I whispered. I double-checked. Your Uncle Ernesto's estate in Portugal. He died 6 months ago. I barely remembered Uncle Ernesto. He'd emigrated decades ago, built a real estate empire in Lisbon. The inheritance was processed through my firm, Martin continued. $33 million. Paulo. Did Eliana know about your uncle? Script part separator, De realization hit me like a freight train. Last Christmas, Eliana had asked about my family in Portugal. A casual question over dinner that seemed innocent at the time. She knew, I whispered. Somehow, she knew before I did. Martin nodded grimly. The timing isn't coincidental. The power of attorney was filed 2 weeks after your uncle's estate entered probate. My hands began to shake. Not from age or illness, but from pure, undiluted rage. They weren't just after my house. They wanted everything, including 33 million euros they had no right to, Martin confirmed. But here's our advantage. The inheritance hasn't been fully processed yet. We can redirect it. To where? A trust. One that Eliana and Ricardo can't access. He leaned forward. Paulo, we need to move quickly. With the right judge, we can get an emergency injunction suspending the power of attorney pending a full competency hearing. And if we lose? Martin's face grew somber. Then you'll need to prepare for the worst. They could liquidate everything, your home, investments, even this inheritance. That afternoon, I visited Dr. Martinez for an emergency evaluation. After a battery of cognitive tests, he looked bewildered. Mr. Mendez, you're sharper than most people half your age. There's absolutely no indication of cognitive decline. Could you put that in writing? I asked. Court-admissible writing? He frowned. Is something wrong? My daughter believes I'm incompetent. She's trying to seize control of my assets. His expression darkened. I've seen this before. Adult children who, he paused, choosing his words carefully, who prioritize inheritance over care. I'll prepare a comprehensive evaluation immediately. Armed with the doctor's report, Martin filed for an emergency hearing. But that night, as I packed a small bag, planning to stay with an old friend until the hearing, my doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't just Eliana and Ricardo. It was two police officers. Paulo Mendes. One officer asked. We need you to come with us. Script part separator, What? I stammered, clutching my partially packed bag. What's this about? Ricardo stepped forward, his expression a mixture of concern and triumph. Sir, Mr. Mendez has been experiencing paranoid delusions. We have a medical hold for his safety. The officer looked uncomfortable but held out a document. I have an order for emergency psychiatric evaluation, sir. I turned to Eliana, who couldn't meet my eyes. You did this. A psychiatric hold? It's for your own good, Dad, she whispered. You've been acting erratically, making wild accusations. This is absurd. I protested, looking at the officers. I just had a complete cognitive evaluation today. Dr. Martinez at Memorial Hospital. Call him. The younger officer hesitated. Sir, we have to follow the court order. You can bring this up at the evaluation. I realized I was standing in my doorway, holding a packed bag, looking exactly like someone fleeing in a delusional panic. The trap was perfectly set. Can I at least make a phone call? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. At the hospital, sir, the older officer said, not unkindly. As they led me to the squad car, Dr. Kumar listened carefully, his expression shifting from clinical detachment to genuine concern. Mr. Mendez, these are serious allegations, he said finally. I see no evidence of paranoid delusions in our conversation. Your thoughts are clear and linear. Then why am I here? I asked. The petition was filed by Dr. Anton Williams. He checked his tablet. Do you know him? I've never heard that name in my life. Dr. Kumar's frown deepened. That's concerning. He claims to have been treating you for early dementia for 6 months. My blood ran cold. That's impossible. My only doctor is Martinez. I'd like to keep you overnight for observation, not because I think you need it, but to protect you while I investigate this discrepancy. That night was the longest of my life. I paced the small room, wondering who Dr. Williams was and how much Ricardo had paid him. By morning, Dr. Kumar returned with a grim expression. Mr. Mendez, I've contacted Dr. Martinez and reviewed his records. There's no indication of cognitive decline. As for Dr. Williams, he paused. His office claims to have extensive records of your treatment, but they've refused to send them without a court order. Fabricated records, I said. Most likely. I'm discharging you immediately and filing a report of suspected elder abuse with the authorities. As I signed the discharge papers, a familiar voice called my name. Martin stood in the hallway with Rosa beside him. Thank God, Rosa cried, rushing to embrace me. When you didn't answer your phone, I called Martin. We've been looking everywhere, Martin said. The emergency hearing is in 3 hours. Hearing. To revoke the power of attorney. Judge Hernandez agreed to see us today. Script part separator, I barely had time to shower and change before we were rushing to the courthouse. Martin briefed me on the way, his voice grim but determined. Judge Hernandez is fair but skeptical. She sees a lot of family disputes over money, he explained. We need to present irrefutable evidence that you're competent and that Eliana and Ricardo are acting maliciously. The courtroom felt impossibly small when we entered. Eliana and Ricardo sat at one table with their attorney, an expensive-looking woman in a tailored suit. Eliana's eyes widened in shock when she saw me walking in freely. That's impossible. For the next several minutes, the courtroom became a battleground. Dr. Martinez testified about my excellent health, presenting the cognitive assessment results he'd completed just days earlier. In my professional opinion, he stated firmly, Mr. Mendez shows no signs of dementia or cognitive impairment whatsoever. Ricardo's attorney tried to discredit him, suggesting he might have missed subtle signs, but Dr. Martinez held firm. I've been practicing medicine for 35 years, he said. I know the difference between normal aging and dementia. Then came the bombshell. Martin called Rosa to the stand. Ms. Pereira, what position did you hold at Mendez Construction? Martin asked. I was Mr. Mendez's executive assistant for 23 years before retiring last year, she replied. And did you maintain his appointment calendar? Yes, every day. Did Mr. Mendez ever have appointments with a Dr. Williams? Rosa's voice was clear and confident. Never. I scheduled all his medical appointments. There was only ever Dr. Martinez. The judge's expression hardened as she turned to Eliana and Ricardo. Their attorney whispered frantically to them. There's more, Your Honor, Martin continued. We have reason to believe this fraudulent power of attorney was obtained specifically to access Mr. Mendez's recent inheritance. Ricardo's attorney jumped to her feet. Objection. Speculation. I'll hear the evidence, Judge Hernandez said firmly. Martin presented the timeline, my uncle's death, the probate filing, and the suspicious timing of the power of attorney document. Furthermore, Martin added, we have evidence that Mr. Costa is currently under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission for financial improprieties. The courtroom erupted. Ricardo's face turned ashen as Eliana gripped his arm. Their attorney demanded a recess, but Judge Hernandez was unmoved. I've seen enough, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The power of attorney is suspended pending a full investigation. Mr. Mendez will retain control of his assets. She fixed Eliana and Ricardo with a stern look. And I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of potential elder abuse and fraud. Script part separator, I stood in the courtroom, my legs trembling with relief and vindication as Judge Hernandez continued. Furthermore, she said, her voice sharp as a blade, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order prohibiting Mrs. Mendez Costa and Mr. Costa from accessing any of Mr. Mendez's financial accounts or property. Eliana's face crumpled. Dad, she whispered across the courtroom. Please don't do this. I simply looked at her, this stranger wearing my daughter's face. The little girl who once rode on my shoulders was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. Outside the courthouse, reporters had somehow gotten wind of the case. Cameras flashed as Martin guided me through the crowd. No comments at this time, he repeated firmly, shielding me from their questions. Rosa squeezed my arm. You did it, Mr. Mendez. You stood up for yourself. But victory felt hollow. I'd won the battle but lost my only family. Back at Martin's office, we discussed next steps. The inheritance would be placed in a protected trust. My house would remain mine. But the deeper wounds wouldn't heal so easily. What about criminal charges? I asked quietly. Martin sighed. That's up to the DA, but based on the fraudulent psychiatric hold alone, it's serious, Paolo. My own daughter could go to jail, I whispered, the reality sinking in. She made her choices, Rosa said gently. So did Ricardo. That evening, alone in my house, truly mine again, I sat in my favorite chair staring at family photographs. Eliana as a toddler, as a teenager, at her college graduation. The proud, smiling faces of the family we once were. My phone rang. Unknown number. Dad. Eliana's voice was broken, tearful. They've arrested Ricardo. The SEC filing came through today. Dad, I didn't know how bad it was, I swear. I closed my eyes, picturing her face. What did you think was happening when he suggested putting me in a home? Script part separator ===. Her silence stretched across the line. Her voice trembled. I told myself we were doing what was best for you. That the house was too much. That you'd be safer with professional care. While you accessed my inheritance, I said flatly. Ricardo said we'd just borrow enough to cover his legal fees, she whispered. That once the investigation blew over, we'd pay it back. You'd never even notice. I laughed bitterly. Never notice 33 million euros? Just a small loan between family members? I didn't know it was that much. She sobbed now, her composure completely broken. Ricardo said it was maybe 5 or 6 million. Enough to make our problems go away. De realização ritmi. You didn't even read the documents you were signing, did you? Just followed Ricardo's instructions blindly. Daddy, please. I need help. They're investigating me too. They think I knew everything. Did you? Another long pause. Not everything. But enough. I knew the power of attorney was wrong. I knew forcing you into assisted living was wrong. The admission hung between us, heavier than all the lies that preceded it. Dad, I'm scared, she whispered, sounding suddenly like the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of decades of parenthood pressing down on me. Where are you now? At Mara's, she said, naming her college roommate. I can't go home. There are reporters everywhere. Stay there, I said finally. I'll call you tomorrow. Are you going to help me? Hope crept into her voice. I don't know yet, I answered honestly. But I do know one thing. Whatever happens next, you need to face the consequences of your actions. I could go to prison, she whispered. Yes, I said. You could. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time. The house that had felt so empty now echoed with ghosts, not just of my late wife, but of the daughter I thought I knew. The next morning brought no clarity, only a pounding headache and the weight of impossible choices. Martin called early with updates more dire than I'd anticipated. The DIA wants to meet with you, he said gravely. They're building a case against both Eliana and Ricardo. Securities fraud, wire fraud, elder abuse, falsifying medical records. Paulo, it's serious. How serious? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. 10 to 15 years for Ricardo. For Eliana, potentially 5 to 7. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. My daughter in prison until her mid-40s. What if I don't press charges for the elder abuse portion? Martin sighed. It might reduce her sentence, but the financial crimes are another matter. The SEC doesn't need your cooperation to pursue those charges. I rubbed my temples, feeling every one of my 65 years. I need to see her. Mara's apartment was modest, nothing like the luxury condo Eliana and Ricardo had purchased last year. With what money, I now wondered. My daughter opened the door looking like a ghost, unwashed hair, swollen eyes, wearing clothes that clearly weren't hers. Dad, she whispered, falling into my arms like she used to as a child. For a moment, I just held her, this broken woman who had tried to destroy me. When we finally sat down, I didn't offer platitudes or forgiveness. I want the truth, I said. All of it. From the beginning. The story poured out between sobs. Ricardo's legitimate business failing 3 years ago. The first borrowed client funds. The spiral of larger thefts to cover previous ones. The mounting pressure as investigators closed in. When we heard about Uncle Ernesto's inheritance, it seemed like the answer to everything, she admitted. Ricardo said we just needed access. That's when he suggested the power of attorney. And the nursing home. She couldn't meet my eyes. We needed you somewhere you wouldn't ask questions while we handled the transfers. The weight of her betrayal crushed my chest. My own daughter had been willing to warehouse me like outdated furniture. What about Dr. Williams? The fabricated medical records. She swallowed hard. Ricardo hired him. Some doctor with a gambling problem willing to backdate records for cash. The psychiatric hold? That was panic, she admitted. When we heard you were meeting with Martin, we knew you'd discovered everything. Ricardo said we needed more time. Time for what? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. To access the inheritance and move it offshore. I stared at my daughter, this stranger wearing familiar features. What happened to you, Eliana? Your mother and I raised you better than this. She broke down completely then, sliding from the couch to her knees. Dad, I'm so sorry. I got lost in Ricardo's world, the status, the money, the pressure to maintain appearances. I forgot who I was. Looking down at her, I felt a complex tangle of emotions, rage, disappointment, heartbreak, and underneath it all, the stubborn, irrational love of a parent. The DA wants to meet tomorrow, I said finally. They're building their case. Her body shook with sobs. I know I deserve punishment, she whispered. But I'm so scared. I reached down, lifting her chin so our eyes met. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Eliana. But I am still your father. 2 weeks later, I sat in another courtroom, watching my daughter accept a plea deal. 5 years for financial fraud and conspiracy, with the elder abuse charges dropped at my request. Ricardo, who'd taken the lead role in their scheme, received 12 years. As they led my daughter away, she looked back once, her eyes filled with a regret I hoped was genuine. Outside, reporters again swarmed, but this time I stepped up to the microphone. Today is a day of deep personal tragedy, I said, my voice steady despite the cameras. My daughter made terrible choices, and now she faces the consequences. But I want to announce that the €33 million inheritance I recently received will be used to establish a foundation for elder protection and financial education. The reporters erupted with questions, but I continued. Sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the deepest betrayals. My daughter will serve her sentence, and I pray she'll emerge a better person. Meanwhile, I intend to use this painful experience to help others avoid similar fates. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I established the Mendez Foundation with Martin's help, focusing on protecting vulnerable seniors from financial exploitation. I sold the house, too many ghosts haunted its halls, and bought a smaller place near the ocean. Rosa came out of retirement to help run the foundation, her organizational skills proving invaluable. And every month, I visited Eliana in prison, our conversations slowly rebuilding some fragile version of trust. 1 year into her sentence, during a visit, she reached across the table and took my hand. The foundation is doing amazing work, Dad, she said, having followed its progress through news articles I sent. You turned our tragedy into something meaningful. Not our tragedy, I corrected gently. My tragedy was losing you to greed. Your tragedy was forgetting who you were. She nodded, tears welling. When I get out, will there be a place for me there? At the foundation. I studied my daughter's face, thinner now, stripped of makeup, humbled by confinement. I saw in it echoes of the child she'd been and glimpses of the woman she might become. We'll see, I said, neither promising nor denying. You have 4 more years to decide who you really want to be. As I walked out of the prison that day, I felt lighter somehow. The inheritance that had nearly destroyed my family was now helping hundreds of others. The daughter who had betrayed me was finding her way back to herself. I thought of my late wife, wondering what she would make of all this. She'd always believed people could change if given the chance. Perhaps she was right. Only time would tell. Meanwhile, I had work to do, a foundation to build, lives to protect, and most surprisingly of all, a new chapter of my own to write. At 66, I discovered that life's cruelest betrayals sometimes open doors to unexpected purpose. And that, perhaps, is the most valuable inheritance of all.